Canceling Christmas. In Myanmar, the military government is forbidding churches from holding Christmas services after December 19th. There will be no Christmas Day celebrations. It's only the latest in a long list of religious freedom and human rights violations in that country. Here to explain this and more from the UK is Christian Solidarity Worldwide spokesperson Kiri Kankhwende. Kiri, why is Myanmar's military council restricting Christmas celebration?
Well, the excuse that they've given is that it's to do with the elections, which are due to be held on the 28th of December in various parts of the country. But we know, and I'm sure your listeners also know, that it has not taken much for the military to crack down on religious freedom in Myanmar, in Burma. And this is not the first infringement of the religious freedom of Christians in the country.
Well, how are the Christians responding to this new order? Are any going to disobey the order? Are they going to hold services on Christmas Day regardless? How would they be penalized if they don't obey the order?
The sources that we've spoken to are very afraid, but also very upset by this, Christmas being so important to us as Christians. And to be honest, an election is no excuse for this sort of restriction. We're not sure. We have not heard anything about any people wanting to disobey the order. The punishment could be quite severe. We know that they have no compunction in terms of attacking Christians, attacking churches, arresting and abducting clergymen. So the penalties for anyone who disobeys this will be quite harsh. And you're dealing with the military. These are innocent civilians facing off against the military. But the fact remains that people are alarmed and afraid. In the states where this has been announced, there is already an internet blackout. There's a lot going on. We've heard about this, but there's a lot going on under the radar, which is not making it to the public, to the public's awareness because of this internet blackout. So their fear will no doubt be that if they disobey this order under darkness, then the military will do terrible things to them and no one will know about it.
So this isn't happening in Yangon. It's outside of the capital also, right?
Yes, we're talking about Kachin State, certain areas of Kachin State where the election is due to be held. In some of the ethnic minority states, which tend to be Christian as well, in Karen, in Kachin, in Chin State, predominantly Christian ethnic minority areas, we have seen religious freedom violations for several years. And this is just another excuse to crack down on Christians.
Well, our reporter Chuck Holton was in Myanmar, also known as Burma, as you say, late last year. He documented regular government army attacks against Christians and their churches. And has it subsided any this year? Are the churches still under attack, and why?
Unfortunately, it is not subsiding. In fact, the government has passed a series of legislation, again, with the excuse of the elections. But what they have resulted in is a tightening of this web of surveillance that the military is conducting on all of its citizens. But under that excuse of surveillance and repression, we know that religious minorities and Christians in particular are being targeted. And when I say targeted, I mean things like being abducted, arrested. We know of one pastor who was abducted on his way home from a service and is now serving in the military against his will and against his conscience. Things like that are going on.
Tell us what else has been happening in Myanmar, not just for the Christians.
Yes. So Myanmar has been subject to a coup and emergency condition since February 2021, when the military seized power. The last democratically elected leader, Aung San Suu Kyi, is currently in prison. And under this emergency legislation, the army has been tightening its grip on power. You'll be aware that there was an earthquake not long ago as well, devastated several communities. And we know that the military has been restricting aid to people who need it, precisely so they can tighten their power and siphoning off what aid does make it for their own benefit. So they are really repressing the people of Myanmar.
Well, what must be done then to help the people of Myanmar free themselves from this oppressive regime?
Well, the one thing that we're calling for is for the international community not to recognize these elections. Don't give them the legitimacy that they're seeking, because this government desperately wants to be seen as legitimate. That's why it is now having an election, even though it's not free and it's not fair. And we need the international community to acknowledge that and keep saying it. Furthermore, there is actually a case before the criminal court for the commander-in-chief Now, that has been languishing now for several months, I think over a year, actually. This cannot go on. We urge the international community to push that forward so that he can be prosecuted for the crimes he has committed. And finally, keep calling out for humanitarian access, for humanitarian agencies to be able to get to the people who need it. The military has been bombing hospitals, churches, where civilian targets, which is against the laws of war. And in the midst of all this, civilians have been caught up in this terror for several years, and they need release.
Okay, CSW's Kiri Kankhwende, thank you for being with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.